Workers have sort of a variety of opinions about the different work arrangements. Companies also, have made different decisions and have a range of thoughts about the positives and negatives of the different work arrangements. I think, businesses and by extension their investors, we've heard increasingly that there's maybe a little bit of a shift going on from sort of the businesses favoring the 1099 to businesses starting to shift toward a W-2. We've heard from some venture capitalists, for example, that they now will say, if a startup entrepreneur comes to them with a business plan centered around a 1099 model, they'll come back and say, I'd prefer to see this business plan with W-2s, in part because they just want the certainty. We're in a moment of a lot of litigation and sort of questions around classification. And I think we are trying to figure out whether those, whether the descriptions of the work relationships that exist are accurate. Some have proposed a third classification for workers. So sort of in the midst of this discussion, we are hearing calls for an independent worker or a dependent contractor, sort of a third way to classify workers that don't exactly feel like they fit in either bucket. But I think really the broader question here is whether, when, or how are we going to update our social safety net to reflect the fact that there is so much more work today being done on an independent or contingent basis. And once we get through resolving some of the questions around just sort of are they X or are they Y, behind that there's actually a much more important and fundamental and unfortunately bigger and hairier conversation that we're going to have to wrestle with as a society.
So, Mike, you guys have tens of thousands of drivers using Lyft to earn income across the country, and obviously this is a conversation you've had quite a bit internally and spent a lot of time surveying your drivers and understanding what's important for them. Maybe you could talk about how you guys approach it and some of the feedback you've heard from drivers as well.
Sure. I think, look, first off, it's important to understand the Lyft vision, right? The Lyft vision is that everyone is on a Lyft-like platform, right? Giving rides, getting rides, so that you can make a decision as to whether or not you actually need a car. And if you have a car, you're sharing the seats in the car, right? So I'm a Lyft driver. I did it because we've got this cool thing called driver destination mode where you can enter in the address you're going, and you can pick people up 5 minutes around where you are and 5 minutes around where you're going. And last week we just launched Lyft Carpool, which is actually really focused on people who are doing the commute down the 101, right? So the cultural shift we talked about, first it was like, will I get into a car with a stranger? The next one is like, will everyone start picking up strangers? Which is tough, right? I'm from Southern California. Like I grew up sitting in my car by myself. Like, am I gonna pick up strangers along the way? I don't know, but our idea is that we'll reach this cultural shift. I think it's important to understand the demographics of our drivers, right? So 80% of our drivers are doing this 10 to 15 hours a week, right? Very much on a casual basis. In San Francisco, we have a lot of entrepreneurs. We have a lot of students. Maybe we even have some Haas students who are Lyft drivers. But look, these are people doing it on a casual basis. And during the course of this litigation, what we found out actually was that only 0.5% of our drivers over a 2-year period of time were doing this like, quote, full time, meaning more than 30 hours a week for a period of 6 months or more. So we know that people are doing this, as means of supplemental income. That being said, look, this is a complicated question. And what we want to do is make sure that while people are on the Lyft platform, we're treating them as best as possible. So we have partnerships with Intuit to help them with taxes, right? We did blast emails about the ACA. We partnered with Enroll America to make sure that our drivers knew about healthcare options. We partnered with an entity called Honest Dollar, which is a company that helps independent contractors with retirement and savings plans. We've got gas cards. We've got perks with Verizon. The idea for us is that, look, we know that being a Lyft driver isn't necessarily your dream, but while you're using Lyft as a bridge towards your dream, like we're gonna treat you in a great, humane way. And that's also why we, frankly, were involved with Libby and Greg and a group of academics and Dr. Tyson and think tanks and other industry leaders who signed on to this letter of principles around flexibility and stability, acknowledging that the world is changing. And there are people who are utilizing these online platforms, as sources of income. And so what can we do as sort of thought leaders in this space to have a meaningful conversation, to figure out what the onus is on the private sector industry, what the onus is on workers, and what the onus is on government.
Thanks, Mike. Kadi, I want to touch on housing.